Hello there, welcome back. Here on the channel I do talk about PVE loadouts on stream here and there, but I've never done a devoted video for it, so let's do that today. Of course, I do talk about PvP loadouts quite a bit. I do a video every season end for Arena, and check out my last one. Not only did I get a rank 1 finish, but I did show some loadouts there and talk about some team building. Okay, in any case, let's dive right in and talk about Fateboard first. Fateboard is definitely the new hardest content. And when I build a Fateboard loadout, here are some of the things I'm thinking about. Okay, in general, I want to build a team with 2 DPS and 1 healer. The DPS will have an EX main hand, and Memoirs will prioritize crit rate and damage and HP. And if I'm really struggling, I'll go for a partial HP set. We'll see that in a moment. The subs, Boon is your most reliable damage modifier because it works even if you're, whatever your HP is, high or low, the Boon always works. And toughness is great because you're going to need to be tanky as well. Got to find that perfect balance between damage and tankiness. All right, your healer can have a buffing main hand or a healing main hand. Hopefully one with a ripper or a defense buff that you can loop if you're having trouble. And with the exception of the final, the most recent one we got, Quest 25 with Fio, the boss Fio, off-element healing can work, and I recommend it if you have Christmas Gale or Celeb F66X. Those are still the 2 best healers, even with the newest Hina costumes. And your healer can have party HP, that's what I do, or party attack, like the new flat ones. All right, let's dive in and look at my example here. This is the loadout I used to clear Quest 25 Fio. And the EX costumes are going to serve you well because they have an innate element resist. It really goes a long way in Fateboard. And then you want to bring your best damage dealer. Of course, this is going to change depending on the quest you're doing. Sometimes you need a certain element, but if you're just trying to get your clear, or sorry, a certain weapon type. If you're just trying to get your clear, you want to grab your strongest character for that element. And then F66X still served me well, even though I didn't have her using fire like I do on previous stages. Again, you can't do it versus Fio, you have to have dark. And I was very pleased that a buffing weapon was able to work. It has a debuff and buff. Okay, you see she has party mems, and I want her to have fast cooldowns in case I need to loop something. This is just kind of my templates here. So both staffs, toughness, and cooldown. And often she'll have a weapon that has a ripper, like attack break or defense buff that I can loop if I'm having trouble. And this is great, the toughness sub. Okay, party HP mems, of course. Then both of these, you see, I have a partial HP set that prioritizes crit rate and damage. Another HP set piece that has rate and damage in the subs. So that's worth farming. Get into that first dungeon there and farm those Young Lord Studies sets. That should help you out. And then a third piece to just boost the crit rate and damage. And then here, I got away with not having a partial HP set. This is just a regular partial crit damage. And you could also do the one where you have a crit damage main. But you see, I did stack a lot of HP into his subs. This new weapon you might not have. It has great HP value, toughness, and I would rather have that be a boon. But that's what I have here. See, a boon, toughness weapon. And his HP is looking pretty good. And it was enough for him to survive that battle. And of course, an EX main. Those are always the best damage weapons. Companion strat is pretty much always the same. You want one that boosts the element you're using, one that resists, and then an extra one for Valiance if you need it, or in this case I have an attack break. which is great for Fateboard, actually. So I might save that attack break companion for one of those big slow load skills and pop it right beforehand to help me survive it. And my other ones are going to look similar with slight variation. So this is the most recent light team I used, and just like I said, off element healer. Christmas Gale, because 21 through 25 was so hard, I really needed Gale for that damage reduction, and she needs to be wielding water. Her own weapon is great, has a defense buff and a heal if you need more healing. However, I was able to pull off the most recent one here. Must have been 24. With this, and I love it because it's got an attack buff and that really speeds up the damage. And oddly enough, boosting damage is one of like it's one of your modes of survival, right? If you can kill faster, then less damage is coming at you. Then of course this has a ripper that you can loop and stack. So if you're like really in trouble, you can just sit there and loop this skill and get that attack break stacked up to 10, so the boss is hardly coming at you with any damage now, and also that'll help recharge her character skill. Once again, the party mems here. This I brought for the extra resist, so these subjugation weapons are great in the subs. Do you need extra resist? Theo was kind of dying easily. I was really bummed when I got to that Theo battle and just everyone's died right away. And I read the description and realized that you can't bring off elements on that. It's kind of like subjugation. Once again, look here. Here's a prime example. I have the partial HP set, I have an EX main, and then I have boon and toughness. Boon and toughness. I want to get that HP value as high as possible while still having the boon for damage. And this should be successful, and you know, with the right characters can carry you pretty far in Fateboard. And then my ternary decks are over here. Here's my fire. And this is so great when you can actually use her element and it be the proper element. And these are nicer because then you actually resist the boss's damage, whereas like the dark and light thing it's tough, where maybe the off element's actually better in most cases because you're not weak to that element now. So her own weapon works great, and then you see I have really similar things going on. I got away with just straight damage mems here, straight damage subs. So ternary only went up to 20. That's probably why I was able to squeeze that out. You see pure DPS here. So I assume once we get ternary 21 through 25, I'm going to come in here and start changing this and start trying to boost the HP values more. But you see everyone's got HP debris as well. Okay, then we have, yeah, so something similar here. And it's just like, I have the template set, I have the memoirs and the subs kind of set. I might switch them out when I need a different weapon type, depending on the requirements for the quest. Here, I got away with a buffing weapon. Off element, I don't get her gimmick of the attack break in the character skill, but still very good. All right, cool. And then, yeah, another no-brainer, right? Using Gale on the water team. Cool, so when it comes to RoD, it's basically the same thing with a less steep requirement. Of course, the challenge here is the fact that you only have so many weapons that work. So the general strat is to go for 8 stacks of barrier. So you only need 2 weapons. That means you can bring a EX main on your DPS. Now here I said 8 stacks of barrier unless COD, that means Curtain of Darkness. On that one, you really want to go for 10 stacks because that blind is going to get you. So on that one, I just go for 10 stacks and I just grab the best weapon that I have. And it's just going to suffer a bit, but it's worked for me just fine. Now, team loadout, triple DPS usually works just fine. Maybe 2 DPS, 1 supporter. Of course, if your account is less developed and you're not surviving, then go ahead and slot in a healer 2 DPS, kind of like Fateboard. So here I said EX main DPS. So use an EX weapon for the ideal damage output. 8 stacks in the subs means you'll grab, each sub will have the barrier of 4. And once again, you want to gravitate towards any boon weapons you have, or any, relevant damage modifier weapons. Or maybe you just don't have good options, you just put a proficient weapon down there for the stats. And memoirs have always just gotten away with crit based mems. Like I said before, like one crit rate main, another crit rate main, and then a crit damage main with the best subs that you have. And companion, the usual loadout once again. One for the boon to boost the element you're using, one to resist the element you're up against, and then the spare one being one of the Valiant's companions, gives a boost of attack to the party. All right, check out my last stream for an example of some building loadouts with that. Okay, so let's talk about Subjugation. For me, this is actually the hardest game mode, just getting that score. So you really have to squeeze out every last bit of damage possible. Usually, you want it to look like this per wave: 1 DPS, 2 support. And if you really need help getting knocked down, 2 DPS, 1 support, and your second DPS can be wielding a support weapon. Once again, EX main for your DPS, with boon or other damage modifiers in the subs, depending on the element. So if it's dark, you want to grab those Caged Vigor weapons. In fact, any wave 2, you can use Caged Vigor in the subs, because you're bound to have low HP in wave 2 on any elements. Bold Vigor for lights and water. Fire doesn't really have much going for it. Do what you can. Usually it's like crit damage and crit buffing. Wind will be Pursuit that you want to look for. Sometimes you just want a boon and vigor weapon. Okay, one of your supports should be maining a buffing weapon that boosts attack. You definitely need an attack boosting weapon in there somewhere. And hopefully maybe element boost or other relevant modifiers like Pursuit. You can't do much with off element. In fact, you can't use off element at all in Subjugation. You will just die immediately. So unfortunately, you can't just bring a Courtly Devotion on every element. Okay, your other support should have a debuffing weapon, one that has Defense Break or Crush, something like that. And your goal in general is to get to 10 buff stacks for attack and as many defense break stacks as well. So you're going to want to have that in your weapons. You're going to want to, if you can't get enough from the weapons, you have to bring someone with character skill that has a defense break. And maybe a companion with a defense break to prolong and stack those and get as many stacks. So you might be like, have your best character, their stats look great. You know, all their modifiers are looking great. They have 10 buff stacks, and they go into knockdown, and they still can't cap. You need more defense break. Okay, and then mems are straightforward on your DPS, just again with the crits and attack. Getting your attack as high as possible, and your crit rate and damage as high as possible. So crit rates in Subjugation, whereas in other PVE, I think you can get away with being in the 80s, and in PvP, I actually shoot for the 80s. So I can have higher crit damage because in PvP, I'm using full sets of memoirs, right? So it's harder to get those. You can't just break them up. You want your cooldowns to be fast. So in any case here, 90%, I would really want my units to have like 90 or above in Subjugation, because a missed crit is like, it could be another reset, and that resetting takes forever. So you really want your crit to be a little higher in Subjugation, but don't let that crit damage fall under 200. And if it's not looking like that, you need to farm harder. You need to get into those dungeons and farm so hard. Because once again, getting that SSS plus, this is end game. You have to just squeeze so much out of everything. Okay, so on your support units, the new Sarafa set, the flat party attack is where it's at, because you should have enough source of timed attack from your weapons, from the companion, or from character skills. You should have that all figured out so you can have your 10 stacks all the way through knockdown. And so when your supports are bringing the base attack, and you're still putting the 10 stacks on it. At this point in the meta, that's where it's at. So usually 2 flat party attack mem sets on your supports, and sometimes maybe you want one of your supports to do more damage and it's too hard to get good crit rate and damage values on a full set. So maybe you have one set and then one of your other supports has damage, or like I said, sometimes in the 2 DPS, of course you're going to want good rate and damage on your second DPS. Okay, just the usual companion strats, you know, but you might want to squeeze in some defense break here and there. And you can't always have 2 Valiance companions. Sometimes you can get away with not having the resist companion, which will allow you to bring a defense break companion or 2 Valiance companions. And then another, so I say that attack break companion in wave 2 because you really need, sometimes you really need to take the edge off of that big nuke that comes at you. And if you can't survive that, then your score is going to suffer. So I will often bring that attack break companion and pop it before the big nuke. And wave 2, another notable thing to know is that that big nuke recharges your character skill. So the pursuit buffing character skills, the general ones like Christmas Akeha and Bloody Argo, are great to use. Especially Christmas Akeha, you can do an animation skip by queuing it right after the big nuke. Right before it charges, you can use it and it'll save some time and animate as the moose is withdrawing from the nuke. And then it'll charge on the next turn and you'll be able to use it right away again, twice in a row. So strong. Now wave 3 is a little harder, so you might bring 2 DPS there. Or here, I said a rebuffing strat, and this might just be me, so take it with a grain of salt. But if you have enough sources of Valiance, and maybe even, for example, like the EX Demos gun that can buff your own damage, you have a weapon that can buff your own attack and get back up to 10, because this is the wave where the moose will wipe your stacks clean if you don't knock down before that skill comes. So that's why you might want 2 DPS so that you can get to knockdown sooner. Or you go ahead and let the moose cleanse that and you have a rebuffing strat. You might have a buffing character skill, a companion, and then a buffing weapon, and then maybe your DPS even has a self-buffing weapon. Then you might be able to get to 10 stacks again. And that strat can be good if you can't get that knockdown early enough. Okay, cool. So let's head back into the game here and take a look at it. All right, so let's go into wave 1 here. So 2B is obviously my DPS. Once again, she's got an EX main and subs that have Boon and Bold Vigor. So once again, the subs have the damage modifiers. The crit rate, I would like to be higher. I should come back and dial this a little more, but these are all just like mixed matched crit rate or crit damage mains. And then you see the companion strat. Here I have my off piece is actually a really strong defense break. Make sure it's at the end and that you're not vulnerable after that. But you see my 2 sports here. Marie has the character skill for defense break, has the attack buff and pursuit buff in her main hand. Then here I'm just trying to boost, like, you know, Boon, maybe some survivability there. I do want to help her damage a bit. So Saryu, obviously buffing character skill as well. You see how one of them is buffing and one of them is debuffing? So Saryu's the buffer, attack, element boon, and then more element boon here, and the provoke actually comes in handy. Take focus off of my bold vigor units. And then you see that we have the flat attack set here. So try to farm your best ones so that your rate and damage isn't total trash. Kind of like mine is. And then here, I guess I built her for a DPS. But with a good enough set, it might be better to actually run double. So let's take a look at this one. All right. So once again, EX main, damage boosting subs. And since I know he's going to go to Caged Vigor, I put a Caged Vigor and Vigor weapon here. And this was worth the pearls and the mats to refine it, because this one you can use on every element. It's a great sub for Caged Vigor. Of course, his character skill benefits from it too. And then Argo here with the flat attack, and Akeha the same. So Argo's taking care of the buffing. I don't have a better weapon to use. Akeha's taking care of the debuffing, the defense break here. And of course, Argo helps with the debuffing, his character skill, and of course, Akeha being the best buffer. And looks like we have the typical, like, boon, resist, valiance combo there. And then this needs improvement. It was kind of a placeholder for now, because I was using Fio on wave 1. In any case, she's the DPS unit that also has a defense break, which is great. EX main, same deal. Subs. And then again, flat attack. Courtly for the buffing. Character skill has the defense break. Buffing character skill. More buffing here. It appears as if maybe I was doing a rebuffing strat. See, I got lots of buffing going on. Could use a little more defense break on this wave. So this wave can be improved, you see? All right, so that's just one example. And you just have to do your best from there. All right, that will actually conclude the video, because at this point, any other content you're doing, you know, if you're doing tower, then use the Fateboard strat, but it's going to be even easier, right? Any other quests, just, you know, go full DPS. Mains, subs, mems, everything. 3 DPS team, just fine for all the regular content, no big deal. And again, if you want to know more about PvP, check out my arena videos, especially my last one. And as always, if you like what you see here, throw a like on the video and a sub on the channel. All that helps me grow, and it's much appreciated. I'll see you in the next one.